Hello, my name is Heidi Hamilton. I am Patricia Potts' daughter, and I'm the one interviewing her today. Today is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023.
And you think you hear a dog in the background, but you don't. It's just your imagination.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so what is your full name?
Patricia Tew is what I was born with, and then Potts. Then I married Dan, and I became Patricia Tew Potts.
And no middle name.
No, and I always felt bad about that, so I gave all of our daughters
the same name.
Middle name. And yeah, it was really easy to give them all Anne. So.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, so what day did you make your entrance into the world?
Keep going.
Okay.
What day? I was November 19th, 1955. Annie, don't do that or else we'll go back in the kennel.
Okay, November 19th, 1955 is when you were born.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're not going to go through everything, but who are your parents and your siblings?
Pause it for a second, that's my breath.
Okay, and we're back. I forgot to mention we are here in the Potts St. George home. So that's where we're interviewing today. Okay, again, tell me who your parents are and who your siblings are.
So, my parents are, by the way, I have to go one step back and tell you, when I married Dan, I was called Patty, and it was, Patty went to Potts. So, just had to throw that in there. Some people teased us.
Patty went to Potts.
Yeah, Patty to Potts. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, back to my parents. My parents are Louise Barton. Yeah, Louise Barton Tew.
Well,
And
Doris is her
you're
actual
right.
first name.
Yeah, she didn't even know that her first name was Doris until she was going to be baptized. Yeah. So anyway, my dad is Burton Tew Jr.
Yes, he is Junior. How come there wasn't a Burton Tew the third? Second.
It's Burton Tew. It's my
Burton.
brother is the next one.
But wrong.
And,
It throws it off. It's supposed to be Burton Tew.
That's what
second.
he calls himself. That's what he calls him. He doesn't call himself Ron anymore.
I know he doesn't, but if it's the genuine name, it has to be passed on exactly,
Just like
because it
George.
was Burton Tew, and then it was Burton Tew Jr., and then it was supposed to be Burton Tew the second.
Burton, my brother's name is Burton Ronald Tew. Anyway,
So
moving on.
yes, so tell us all your siblings' names. Speaking of that,
Siblings' name. Please pause it.
okay, siblings.
Okay, so Leah Ann Tew was my oldest sibling. And
there
I
was
came
you.
next. Patricia Tew. Then there was Cynthia Louise Tew, my youngest sister. So there's three girls. And then the boys started. My brother Barton Hal Tew. And then Ronald Burton Tew. So it wasn't Burton Ronald, it was Ronald Burton Tew.
Yeah.
Junior. Whatever he is. And then there's David Tew.
Mm-hmm.
So there was three
He didn't
girls
get a
and
middle
three
name
boys.
either.
David Mark. Sorry.
Mark. Okay.
David Mark Tew.
There you go. All right, we got the parents and the siblings. We're just going to record we have a lot of written history, which we're going to have with memories that Mom has of, her grandparents and great-grandparents and things that she remembers. But if you will share one memory of a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, something that impacted your life.
Okay. I'm going to begin with my grandpa Tew. And I've written a poem in honor of my grandpa Tew and my grandpa Tew. Will you share that? Or just one memory.
Just
Okay.
one memory. We'll get to the poems in a minute.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so my grandpa, whenever I think about him, the memory that means the most to me was when, well, I don't know how old I was, but I sat on his lap. And I guess he's kind of did the horsey thing or something. But I remember looking up and we had really blue eyes. And I swear they twinkle. They really twinkle. And I knew that, somehow I knew that my grandpa was, how do I say this? He wouldn't want to be anywhere else in the world except with me on his lap. And he had the ability to be in the moment, fully in the moment. And he was a bishop for like 26 years. I can only imagine how much love people felt when they came in to talk with him. So that's my grandpa. I love him very much. My grandma, too, was the only grandma. Mary, too, wasn't my biological grandma, but she was the only grandma I knew on the Tew side. Okay, one memory. I loved to go to grandma's and be with her when she cooked. She made homemade bread before her arthritis took over her hands, and she wasn't allowed very able to. And I remember being in the kitchen. She made me feel like I was a really big helper, like, right. But when she would make that bread and, she knead it, and oh, how I loved to be in the kitchen with my grandma too.
This is Mary too.
Yeah, Mary. But the other just tiny thing I have to add about her is when arthritis took over her whole body. And her hands were very gnarled and
disfigured, yeah.
Yeah. But I was at college and I would write to my grandma and she would write back these, letters, maybe a page long, and I knew that it was a really big sacrifice and that it would have been really, really hard for her to write even a single word. So I love my grandma a lot. So I never knew my great-greats on that side. On the other side, on the Barton side, my grandma Barton was so good at lots of things. I mean, she played the organ and she had a huge garden. When I was little, one time she was watching me and I went to touch one of her plants. She was a pretty big woman back then. And I remember her thundering into the room and slapping my hand really hard. And I honestly didn't know what I did wrong because the light was coming through the window on these beautiful lamps. I must have been like 2 maybe. And when the light came in and hit the leaves, I just could hardly keep myself from touching those leaves. And I didn't know there was anything wrong with that. So it caused for years and years and years and years, that one little incident flavored my relationship with my grandma. And she made us pajamas every Christmas Eve. I can't imagine what it took her. But she wasn't a person who was really got right down on your level. I never really had a talk with my grandma Barton ever. And so she did a lot for the family. She did Thanksgiving and lots of great things. But I never really felt close to her because isn't that crazy? That one incident, and then she just was, she just worked really hard, and I think that's how she showed her love, through work, not words, or through things that she did. So I was closer to my grandma Mary because she really came down on my level, she talked to me, and I knew she really cared about me personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, with Grandma Barton, it was more a general, like something for all the grandkids or something for all the family, which was really nice. But maybe in heaven I can have a real talk with her.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I never knew my grandpa, Barton. He was gone. And Grandma did remarry them. I never bonded with any of them. So that's, I think, it.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about holidays, because one day we would love for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren to know how you celebrated your holidays, and maybe on holidays they can watch this and know how you celebrated. So let's talk about St. Patrick's Day. Did you celebrate that growing up?
No.
That's what I figured it was a.
Yeah, it was a Potts thing. It was my grandma Potts is from Ireland, and so I wanted to celebrate that because you guys all have Irish blood.
Yes.
So McKinley asked me about that.
I know. Yeah, she's gonna have a St. Patrick's Day party. So first, we need a taste of your Irish accent that you used to give when you woke up in the morning and you're making green whatever for breakfast.
Oh yes, we would have pancakes, like maybe green pancakes, and I would say top of the morning to you, and spend the day with I don't know that it's an Irish accent. It's just a brogue of some kind. It just sort of landed in my fat mouth, and
it was very entertaining. So what else did we do on St. Patrick's Day?
Well, it was really fun to have McKinley ask me, because I thought I had things written down as to what we did when we had our St. Patrick's party, but I couldn't find my notes, so I just had to go from my head. Anyway, so I tried to, wish everyone a top of the morning on that day and do green things, whatever it was, whether it was, a mosquito or pancakes or something like that. And I tried to do a party, a St. Patrick's Day party, that would include decorations, which I could get from wherever, Walmart or Dollar Store, and we would like bobbing for green apples. I remember that. And
green scavenger hunts.
Oh yes, that's right. I forgot to tell McKinley about that. Sometimes some hats of some sort. And I think we did kind of like pin the tail on the donkey, but sometimes it was more like a
leprechaun.
Yes, a leprechaun, or and 4-leaf clovers. Oh yes, we used to do outside. You remember we used to do the polling, you take hold of it. I think we just used a hose because it was green, and part of the people on one side and part of the people on the other. Remind McKinley of that, Kate.
Okay.
She might have one.
Yes. Tug of war.
Yeah, so a bunch of other green sort of things. Pistachio pudding. I always tried to do that.
Yes.
So those are a few things that we do.
Okay. All right. Now we're to Easter.
Okay. All right. So I've got to stop talking about that. Okay. Easter. I'm going to start with when I was a child, because on Easter we would actually do Easter egg rolling down the Manti Hill, and we'd go chase eggs and find eggs on the Manti. Of course, you can't do that anymore. But when I was little, we really loved that. And then as a mom, I think it's
did you always spend Easter in Manti?
Yeah, if we celebrated Easter within Manti, so yeah. it was a neat memory. As far as with our own kids, I think I think we tried to, remember the true Easter story of Jesus, and then we did baskets, pretty traditional.
We did Easter egg hunts, which were usually sponsored by Aunt
Althea.
Althea.
That's
and
right.
She would,
or Richard.
There would be.
She had so much fun.
A lot of pushing, and I think she had some good stuff in the eggs.
Yeah, your dad was usually the one that
he was involved in the Easter egg hunt. Yeah, it wasn't just the kids.
Thank you for mentioning that, because that is so true. And didn't we also kind of sometimes do a little bit of a party? And Althea used to do the pin the donkey, pin the tail
for
on the donkey.
Easter,
or was that for something else? I don't know. But she used to do that.
Yeah.
She would dance. And dance.
We have some videos of that, but I don't think it was Easter. I don't know.
Maybe that's true.
Okay, 4th of July.
Oh, 4th of July. Growing up, I don't remember a lot about it, other than sometimes we would see a parade. And as our own family, I think sometimes we did sparklers and stuff. We weren't into spending a lot of money on fireworks.
You have on here Bart, so I'm assuming sometimes you went to Bear Lake for the 4th. Was that not a regular
Well, I said
thing?
Bart because he died.
Yeah, I just thought, was that any kind of traditional thing to go to Bear Lake for the 4th of July? Or was that
we weren't at Bear Lake.
Or whatever lake.
Yeah. I don't remember a lot about that, about either fireworks nor do I really remember that, hey, every 4th of July we went, to a lake.
Because I know you did boat a lot, right?
We did. And maybe it was on the 4th of July that we always went with the wards. I just don't remember, because I don't associate it with fireworks or anything, other than when Bart died, there were fireworks in the sky. We always loved to see fireworks in the sky. I do remember as a girl growing up climbing up on top of the roof.
Of the camper?
No.
Of your house. Okay.
And now
I think
that was the 4th instead of the 24th, because we celebrate with fireworks both on the 4th and the 24th. Yeah. It's confusing. But so for me, the 4th, I do remember losing my brother, him falling on that day. And the 24th, of course, is, our anniversary of Dan asking me to marry him. So they both hold important memories. But as far as, like on the 24th, you guys in your family dress up, so cute on the 24th. And you go to, the parade over at Deanne's. And I don't remember a whole lot.
But our family also climbed on the roof. Like when I was growing up, we did that.
Which house was it?
The West Jordan house.
Okay.
Yeah. And we would light fireworks, but we didn't go crazy. But,
yeah, they're pretty simple.
But I remember the Pitts coming over a couple times and doing fireworks with us, and yeah.
Yeah, that's neat.
Anyway. Okay. Let's talk about Halloween, what you remember growing up.
Let's see. Growing up, I think I just went trick-or-treating like every other kid. And
did your mom make your costumes?
I don't remember very much about costumes, so I don't know that she did. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, going to get candy and then counting our candy afterwards and stuff was, a big deal growing up. And then,
Do you remember any of the costumes you wore growing up?
No.
Okay.
Not any. I do remember as a mother sewing
The genie costumes.
the genie costumes.
Yes.
For you guys, I remember that. And I remember as a mother, you know, it's like both Dan and I wanted to just stay home and not take the kids around the neighborhood kind of a thing. But I remember one year dressing up like a witch and going out on the porch. When I pretended to just be a mannequin.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they would come to the door, I would
Scare them.
you know, and yeah, there was more than one of them that was really scared because the other thing, I don't know if you remember Lee Hunt. You know, he only had one leg.
Yeah.
So he would dress up like a pirate, and he would do the same thing, and that's how I got the idea. He would pretend to be a mannequin, and he even really looked like it because one of his legs was half gone, and then he would jump out and scare people. So, I think that did that maybe 1 year or 2 years, but
I think we did have a Halloween party once in a while.
Yeah, I think we did.
I remember there's a video of Antal dressed up and some other people playing ping pong. Anyway, I don't know. Okay. Christmas is always one that should have some memories. What do you remember about Christmases growing up?
Well, I remember how much I loved to shake the presents under the tree and try to figure out what they were. When I was a young girl, I remember getting a Thumbelina doll, and that Thumbelina doll was probably my favorite Christmas present of all time. Because, yeah.
You said when in the morning you came down.
Oh, yes.
And you said...
Came up. We all had to sleep downstairs.
Okay. So Christmas Eve, you all slept downstairs. Did you do anything
in Grandma's pajamas.
Okay, so Christmas Eve was Grandma's pajamas. You all slept downstairs.
And we opened, I think, one present on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
We always got to open one present. I remember when Dad and I got married, I said, well, that's what we have to do. That's what everybody does. Everybody opens up one present. No, they don't. They wait till Christmas. So we went through all that. But yeah, I would come up and everything was laid out. And we all had our own couch or chair.
On Christmas Day.
Yeah, on
you
Christmas
came
Day.
up.
And there
you
was
were downstairs.
Stockings. Everybody had a stocking, and everybody had a pile, really, a pile of.
But you said they weren't wrapped.
They weren't. Yeah.
But you said you remember shaking them under the Christmas tree.
Well, no, that's true, but those weren't Santa Claus.
Okay, just the Santa gifts weren't wrapped.
Right. Yeah.
But then your parents gave you gifts.
I don't remember my parents giving me gifts. Just Santa Claus.
Okay.
And I think my siblings, did. But the Christmas, besides my Thumbelina, which I absolutely loved, I remember I was probably 9 or something like that, and my parents gave me this doll that was probably my dad's idea, actually, but it was probably 3 feet tall, and you're supposed to walk with it, like make its legs walk as you walked.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, are you serious? You think I like dolls still like that? And my dad was so excited about it. So I opened it up and I was walking around the room, like, oh look what I have. And I remember how to really play acting. I had to really.
You had to, yeah.
Make it look
put
like
on the act.
Exactly, yeah. But isn't that funny? That's a funny things to remember. But those are the 2 things I remember most. Other than an old green bike that my dad got and spray painted, and it was huge. But it was a bike.
Yeah, that's cool. So Christmases when you were a mom, We went to Grandma Tew's for Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the younger years she may have even made the grandkids pajamas. Or you did or something, because I think we
I did. I did for
pictures of
several years.
matching pajamas
Yeah.
when we
That
were
was
really
a really
little.
big thing for me. I really didn't want to give that up. But as the family grew and got bigger, you know, your dad just said, you know,
Yes.
we
For
can't.
lots of years they got matching pajamas. So we did Grandma Tew's Christmas Eve party,
Yeah.
and then usually on Christmas Day, Grandma Potts would come over, and
Yeah.
Grandpa Potts.
Well, and you kids were the only grandkids.
Yeah.
Later on, my mom came sometimes after Mom and Dad Potts passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And she would make a breakfast casserole. And she wanted to come see the kids and see what you guys got. And I remember that.
And we did candle lighting, because that was Dad's mission.
Yeah.
That was a Christmas tradition.
I think I do remember reading, I tried to read Christmas stories to kids the month of December. I don't know if you remember that, but I have a whole book loosely full of Christmas stories, and I remember, of course, whenever I read to you guys, I always kind of mandated that you brush my hair. Probably maybe that's why I don't have very much hair now. I don't know, but it was worth every
It's
hair.
worth it, right? I
Yeah.
do remember us brushing your hair while you read. More specifically, like, I think Anne of Green
Yeah.
Gables or something, or Narnia.
You don't remember the Christmas story?
I don't really remember that very much, but maybe, you know, the ones that we read to our kids are the same ones every year. So they just, you know, there's this special book and we read the same stories.
We've done another memory is we've done the 12 Days of Christmas several years, but do you remember when we did that for Tiffany?
I don't know.
So
I
Tiffany
probably was already married, but
she'd gone to Lifeline and then she came, and she knows this, but she was out of Lifeline and she was in her own apartment, and I felt so bad that she, I don't know, it was just a really hard time, and so I found this really neat thing with dolls from all over the world. And so I did a 12 Days of Christmas for Tiffany. I took her a different doll every day, and sometimes a treat, I think. But of course, she figured it out. But I don't know if she figured it out at the very beginning. But it was something I felt like I could do for her at a really rough time when she was just trying to get out on her own. So that's another Christmas memory.
that's good. How about any times either growing up or as a mom that it was tough financially, like that things were slim as far as gifts went, and whether, you know, as a kid you may not have known, but you may have had some kind of idea.
As a kid, I never really felt I never felt like we were poor or, you know, lacked. There was a lot of contention, honestly, between my mom and dad, because my dad pretty much just wanted to pay for the basic essentials. He would be happy to live on oatmeal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and have no furniture in the house. That's just my dad. He could live off of nothing, you know, and be happy, or potatoes. And my mom, you know, wanted to have nice things in the house. And so my dad said, if you want to go to work and pay for it. So
She did.
Mom paid for a lot. Mom paid for like my dancing trip to Europe. And she was very generous with what money, you know, she made. But so that was my financial memories growing up, is that they didn't always see eye to eye on that. When we were first married, the thing I remember as far as finance goes is that, you know, we had very little, and Althea and Rod, when she was dating him, every once in a while they would leave food on our door, by our door, because we didn't have a lot. One time when I was expecting Cindy, they left a high chair, and that was high chair for all you guys until it died. But
and one time you said someone that you never found out left the jumpy thing.
Yes, that's right, the little jumpy thing, and I did never find out. And one time a neighbor brought over lamb, and I'd never had lamb before, so I had to ask Nana, the lady upstairs, how to fix it. And it's most delicious. I mean, I've tried lamb since then, but there was nothing more delicious than that lamb. And the other financial thing I remember is when I was pregnant with Cindy, I was getting bigger and bigger, and I didn't have money for clothes, and I think Leah gave me some maternity things, but I remember going to Kmart, it was Kmart back then, and seeing some maternity clothes, and I saved pennies and nickels and dimes till in about a month and a half I finally saved up enough to get a maternity outfit. And I loved that maternity outfit, and I almost wore it every day because it took a long time. I had to work really hard to get it. So I remember that, and I don't know, those are the things that come to my mind.
All right. Well, we are going to talk about some of the most powerful spiritual experiences that you've had in your life, so that your posterity can know where your testimony comes from and some of the things that have strengthened it along the way.
Okay. Well, I did write that little book for the kids, grandkids, called Why I Believe What I Believe. But some basic, really important things that I hold on to. One of them was an experience that I had when I was going through a severe depression during my pregnancy with Tiffany. And one day I knelt down. Grandma Potts was there taking care of the kids in the house and everything. I was so tired of being depressed, and I so much wanted to get better. And one day, when she was there, I closed the bedroom door and locked it and got down on my knees, and I said, what did I do wrong? Wasn't I the person who was welcoming people in her ward? Aren't I the person who tries to go the extra mile? I don't get it. Why would this happen to me? Why would I? And the Spirit just touched my heart and said, weren't you the person who's been judgmental of your husband? Aren't you the one who thinks he should do this or that, or not do this or that? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. That was a sin, judging. And when I realized that, then I asked for forgiveness. And I just said, I'm so sorry. I just didn't realize, I guess. I'm sorry. And anyway, at that point, I was just surrounded by His love, by the love of my Savior, Jesus Christ. That's who it was, I knew. And it felt like arms surrounding me, just filling me with love, and totally forgiving me to where I felt so clean. like a newborn baby, just clean. And I remember asking, how can I open that door? How can I unlock and open that door? Because I'm going to do something else wrong. And I was just given the direction that just live prayer by prayer. If you'll live your life prayer by prayer, and then that's all I ask, you know. And so that was I was probably in my 30s, late 20s, and that was my testimony of Jesus Christ. So from that moment on, I could not deny that that Jesus Christ lives and loves us and loves me. And so that was my testimony of Jesus Christ. Another really important testimony for me was my testimony of Joseph Smith. And that came when, shortly after Joseph came to join our family. We had gone back east, and we'd gone to the Sacred Grove, and we kind of fanned out, and with the idea that we'd each have our own personal experience and could maybe, gain a testimony of Joseph Smith. And I remember going by myself to an area that looked like a beautiful area in Sacred Grove, and I remember kneeling down, and oh my goodness, the mosquitoes were like to die for. I mean, you couldn't even pray hardly, because they were like in your face, and you breathe in and they're in your nose. It was just so disappointing, because I just didn't think I could. I finally gave up and started back for the car, because we were all supposed to meet at the car at a certain time, and really disappointed. And there was a little downgrade before you got to the parking lot, and I was halfway through that. I mean, halfway down that hill when I had the knowledge, when the words it formed in my mind was, Joseph Smith was a prophet. And I wasn't asking in that moment, but it came, and it came very powerfully. And I've always, I can testify that Joseph Smith is a prophet. And the next real powerful spiritual experience I had was when we lived in Murray. Yeah, it was Murray. I need to turn that off.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So I was in Murray, and I had a little study there. I think this was before Joseph came, because it was the room that later became Joseph's room. But I I'm in the habit of having my personal study, preferably before everybody wakes up. So I was having my personal study, and then it was about time to make breakfast. So I walked out of the study, and I was just walking between the study and the hall when the words just powerfully came into my mind that said, Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And I hadn't really asked for that. I just had my personal study, and it came with so much power that I've always known. I mean, from that moment, I've really known that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. And I think the reason why God gave me that at that time is because I was to go through another depression. A little while after that, I was the primary president, and when it really hit me again, and I really needed that. I needed that because I felt so worthless. I had to be released from my calling, and I held on to that like a life because when I was talking to the bishop, I said, wasn't that a real experience? Can I be so far off spiritually and have that experience? And he said, of course that was real. Of course. And that was an anchor for me back then. But God has been so good to me. I've had countless experiences that have taught me lots and lots of things, but those are the main, I would say, what would you say, hard rock, basic foundation kind of experiences. So probably if you asked me a subject, I could probably share an experience God's given to me that's helped me.
Yes. Well, let's talk just for a little bit more about your depression, multiple depressions that you've gone through. And, you wrote a book about all of them, or just the 3?
It really encompassed all of them.
Okay. And maybe you can talk to just some of the worst parts of that. Maybe some of your posterity are going to have to deal with depression, and just a couple things that really helped you.
Okay. Some of the worst moments that I had, of course, the first one when it all really started was when I had a really bad day with my preschool and daycare, and I was pregnant, and I was exhausted, and Dan came home that day, and he mentioned that the lawn was burned out. That was like the last thing on my mind. I'm running a preschool and a daycare, and I'm trying to survive, and I don't care about the lawn. And he came in the house, and he mentioned that the kids weren't dressed, and things looked pretty bad, and he had a bad day at work, and I said, "You're right. I'm a terrible wife. I'm a horrible mother. I can't do anything right." And I think he felt like the best thing he could do was to just give me some time and space. And so he went downstairs to watch TV with the kids, and I decided that everybody would be better off without me. And I put on Dan's old coat and went for a walk, and I left. I left. I didn't know where I was going. Anyway, I ended up spending the night in a stranger's basement, and I called my sister Leah the next morning and said, "This is what's going on." And so she picked me up and took me to my mom's, and I was away for 2 or 3 days, and Dan went through his trauma out of that, and the bishop came to pick me up from my mom's house and take me home. And I remember when I first got home, it was like the bishop was there, and Dan was there, and I was there, and there was an elephant in the middle of the room, because I didn't know what to say, he didn't know what to say. And anyway, that began 3-month dysfunctional depression. And I learned some really, really important lessons that served me that I shared in my book. One of them was the 3 stages of overcoming loss or grief. So it works for grief of any kind, depression or otherwise. But the first one is the first stage that I learned at this Relief Society thing.
Which your friend had to ask you
Yeah,
multiple
which
times.
my friend, that's right.
Don't give up on someone that's
Yes.
in that
And
place.
I was meant to be there, obviously, the social worker. She just said the first one is denial, characterized by guilt, anger, and frustration. And the second one is acceptance, and accepting the way things are, not the way we think they should be. And the third one is rebuilding. And so for me, that was a light at the end of the tunnel, because somebody was giving me a pattern. I knew that I had been in denial, and the acceptance part, accepting the way things are, was really important for me, because like every day Mom and Pop had to come and take care of things, then I was feeling guilty and feeling like I should do this or that. Anyway, so that was really, really an important thing. But there was another spiritual thing that happened that had profound, it really helped me with my recovery. And that was that one night, Dan and I had retired, and he asked if maybe I could start, taking care of the kids. It's hard on his mom all the time, and, maybe doing a little laundry. And I for me, back then, I feel like there's no way I could do that. I couldn't. I was just so afraid, and afraid of even trying to take things over again. And I jumped out of bed and threw myself on the beanbag chair and just wished that I could die. Really, if I wasn't carrying a baby, I might have gone to the cupboard and just, taken all these pills or jumped out the window. I was that desperate in that moment. And Dan quickly could see that I wasn't ready, and he came over and put his arms around me and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push you too far, I just thought maybe, and anyway, he asked what he could do, and I said, give me a blessing, please give me a blessing." And so, Dan, he's so, he got in his suit at like 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever it was, because he wanted to be prepared for that blessing. And during the blessing, I was told that I had agreed to that depression. I had agreed before I came down to the earth, and that the day would come when it would be a blessing to myself and all those around me. I don't swear, I don't swear. But I'm just going to say, when he finished the blessing, I thought to myself, I didn't say it out loud, but I thought, to hell it's going to be. There's no way that this could be a blessing. No way. But what really helped me with that blessing was to know that and to not just hear the words in the blessing, but to know that I had agreed, and that there was something that Heavenly Father, that my heavenly family, Heavenly Father and Jesus and my mother in heaven were there. I knew that. And I knew that we had had a discussion about what I needed to have happen in order to come back. And I knew that because I knew that, I could accept. You know, when I learned those 3 stages, then I finally could accept what was happening to me, because it wasn't like I was a bad, horrible person.
Mm-hmm.
It was that I needed that. And so I was then able to move to the rebuilding when the time was right, and get back on with my life. And when I went through other depressions before I was diagnosed as being bipolar, I knew those 3 steps, and I was able to get better a lot faster. And so I will say, you asked about some of my most horrible moments. One of my most horrible moments was when I was really, really depressed, and I went in the bathroom and filled the bathtub full of water, and I felt so all alone and so bad and so guilty and so like I didn't know what my life was going to be like. And I remember being surrounded by a bubble of love, I guess, as you put it. I remember in that bathroom, I needed to be all by myself, a place where I could pray. And I, despite everything around me, despite contention, despite whatever, I once again was blessed with his love and felt like kind of surrounded by his arms again, you know. So, is that okay?
Yeah, that's really good. Would you say maybe one of the triggers to some of your depressions would be like being overwhelmed? Like you have to be careful about, like, because in the first one you were just doing too much and trying to take on too much. And then
that is true. Along with that, I think a real trigger for me has also been approval addiction.
Okay.
Like I always want to, be close to your dad, and so if really that's the best way I can put it, approval addiction from my loved ones,
and all 3 depressions kind of, that was...
Yeah, it was a part of it, for sure.
Yeah.
I've had to learn more about putting, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Seek ye first to just do what you feel Heavenly Father wants you to do, not necessarily what everybody else thinks.
And another big couple things that helped with your depression was being diagnosed with bipolar and getting the medication that you needed and being consistent with that.
True.
And another big tool is cognitive behavioral therapy, which has been not just helping you get out of depression, but stay out of depression.
Cognitive therapy is, for me, such a lifeline that I do it probably even now. I'll do it, I don't know, at least 4 times a week. And I mean, to just in a simple way of saying how to do it. I simplified cognitive therapy down to just 4 columns. The first column, Dr. David Burns is the one that came up with it. He talks about the 10 thought distortions, which are all so good. But for me, on the left-hand side of the paper, I write down what's bugging me, and I usually will. I like to clean house not clean house, but clean house with my thoughts. So I'll begin by saying, okay, so what's bothering me physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally? And then I'll ask myself, what's bothering me in my relationships? With Dan, you know, with each of my kids, and with anybody else that I think. So I start out by saying what's bugging me, just like write what I think about. And then I go through that little, you know, thing. But then the second column is, do I have total, partial, or is this true or not true? That's what it is. True or not true, or maybe it's true. And the next small little column is, you know, do I have total, partial, or no control over it? And sometimes when I realize I have no control over it, it resolves the issue a lot. And I realize all I can do is pray, you know. Which brings me to the last column, the fourth column, which is the talk back, when I kind of make sense of things. For example, a cognitive therapy I just did just a couple days ago. Becca, Joseph's girlfriend, is expecting a baby, and she had to go to the hospital for the second time for hemorrhaging. And so I thought about it, and I was worried about it, and I was worried for Joseph and all of that. Finally, I sat down and did some cognitive therapy. And when I realized on that third column, do I have total, partial, or no control over it, then I decided partial control only in that you girls and I could come together and put some money together, and Cindy offered to go get some, you know, disposable thing. Anyway, so I couldn't have control over her hemorrhaging, but I did have partial control over whether we could share her, to show her that we care. So on my talk back, I said, you know, I have no control over what's happening with her body and the baby, but I can reach out to the girls and we can show that we care. So that cognitive therapy form that now I do on my phone has walked me through many, many things and helped me a lot with approval addiction. Because a lot of times when I get caught up in that, I realize I really don't have control about what somebody else thinks or says or does. And I have to let it go. And let go and let God, I guess. I'm going to just throw this out. It was really good. I was listening to an audiobook, and I do enjoy learning that way. And she was talking about Noah. And she said when Noah was swallowed by the whale.
You mean Jonah?
Or Jonah, yeah. Noah was the one that built the ark, of course. Anyway, with Jonah. And when he was swallowed by the whale, she said, I think he came to realize that he really did. He was in a no control situation. You know, he couldn't make the whale. He was really no control. So, having acknowledged that he was in a no control situation, the scriptures tell us that he prayed. You know, he did what he knew to do. He prayed, and he gave thanks for the things that he had. And so, I thought to myself, Patricia, the next time when you're doing cognitive therapy and it says no control, remember Jonah in the well, and remember that that's the time to thank the Lord for what you have, and, you know, ask him to help as he sees fit. And maybe you'll be spit out like a Jonah.
At least you could be spit out of that thought pattern weighing you down, at the very least.
True.
Thank you. That was all good information, because, yeah, we all can use that, especially those of us that struggle with mental health. So, talk about your brain tumor for a little bit.
Okay.
That's kind of going back in time, because your depressions were...
Yeah.
Well, no, that's going...
No.
It was your 3 depressions, and then you were pregnant with Trisha when you had the brain tumor.
Yeah.
So, But I don't think, maybe you'd gone through 2 depressions before that. Anyway.
I lose track.
Anyway. This was like 1989 or something.
Yeah, 88.
88. And you were having bad headaches.
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, no.
No, I was at some kind of a trailer place and camping. We went camping, and it was my mom's place where she had her motorhome, And I was walking with my mom down the road, down this little trailer place, and just like from one step to the next, I lost my hearing in my right ear.
First indication.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been prone to headaches. I've always had headaches off and on, but I just went, whoa, because like I could hear my mom talking, and then I couldn't hear my mom talking. So I asked the doctor, I told the doctor what was happening. I ended up having like 3 or 4 different kinds of tests, hearing tests and various things. And finally, in the end, they said that I was pregnant, I couldn't have an MRI, but it was looking like I had a brain tumor. But then at about that time, I also had another blood clot. So I was put to bed during the last part of my pregnancy with Tricia. And the interesting thing is that they told me it looked like a brain tumor, most likely. And then they left it at that. And from what I remember, the doctor may have said, no, I think they just kind of left it at that, because my aunt died of a brain tumor, and my sister had a brain tumor, and they're pretty big deals. And so
Yeah.
I remember thinking, I want my kids to know how much I love them. And so I spent much of those couple of months writing, making little loose leaves for each of you, and trying to, I don't know, whatever became of those, but I remember how important it was that I did that. It was something I could do. And the other thing that I did while I was in bed, I crocheted, and I made and sewed this thing. Do you remember Tricia's when she was born, she had that little, I think it was the pits. It was the little cradle at the end of our bed, and then I made a canopy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Turquoise that would go with it, and I made a quilt. So I just tried to keep busy with those sort of things. So after she was born, I was able to have the MRI, and it confirmed that there was a tumor. And at that point, the doctor actually did say that, they're generally benign. And so what I'm trying to say is I think I went through at least 2 months of thinking I might die. And then when he said it was benign, then it was still a big deal. But so anyway, Larry and Cindy took
They call
Tricia.
it
Subdural hematoma.
subdural.
No. That was what Tiffany had. I had an acoustic neuroma.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. Tiffany had that subdural hematoma, and when she ran into a car.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
And,
okay, so yours was acoustic
neuroma. Yeah. So anyway, when Tricia was only a few weeks old, maybe 3 weeks old, I wanted to get it over with. I didn't. They said, oh, it's benign. You can just, do it when you want to. And, I'm like, I've got a brain tumor I want to just get it over with. So Cindy and Larry took Tricia while I had that surgery. And
And she's never had kids, so that was...
Yeah, it was a real blessing for her and Larry. So anyway, I had a difficult recovery. It was probably because I was left with severe headaches, and I never really knew when they would hit.
Talk for a second about your recovery in the hospital room. Isn't that when you're...
Yeah, my grandpa came.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was really struggling emotionally too. It was just a really hard time.
Yeah,
and so
you just had a baby and then just had a major surgery.
Yeah, and this one day,
how long were you in the hospital for after the surgery?
Well, I was in intensive care, I think, definitely longer than they thought, but I think that was for 2 or 3 days. And then I was in the hospital for, gosh, your dad could say more, but I think it was for at least 2 weeks, and maybe 3. I think 2 weeks. Anyway, on this one day, I cried. I'd been really emotionally upset. And so the nurse put a sign on the door that said that I wasn't supposed to be disturbed. And I was trying to sleep, and my eyes were open. I mean, my eyes were closed when I was trying to sleep. But all of a sudden, I became aware that my grandpa was there. And Grandpa had died, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years earlier. And I felt his presence. And it was like this communication went on between the both of us without speaking words or seeing him physically, but I could still see him very much on the left side of my bed, near the window. And he was just sitting there. He was so excited to be there. My grandpa was so happy to be there. Again, it was one of those moments when I knew that he was exactly where he wanted to be. And he let me know that too, without words. And it seemed, and my grandpa kind of sits sometimes with his leg crossed, his right leg over his left leg, and he was sitting like that, and just sitting there, just like he's just so happy to be there. And then I remember asking him if I was going to die, because I still didn't know if I was going to live or die. And he said, "No, you're going to raise." He told me that he knew Patricia. He had known her before she was born, and that he loved her, and he let me know that I would be able to live and raise her. And that meant so much to me. And I think that's most of what, we said. Just, it seemed like he was there for quite a long time. And
didn't you say there was something physical about him?
Oh yeah, that'll come. Yeah. Anyway, so then I kind of fell asleep, and the next thing I knew, there was a noise, and I looked up, and it was my Uncle Fred coming in the door. Mm-hmm. My Uncle Fred is the spitting image of my grandpa. So when he came in the door, he came from Talmadge. I didn't know he was coming. I don't think he knew he was coming. But when he came in the door, it was just really a confirmation to me that I'd seen my grandpa, because it was just one right after the other. And I don't know how they ever got in the room, because the sign said, "Don't come in." So anyway, after that, I shared this with my dad. And I asked him, I said, the one thing that I noticed, that there was a mark on my grandpa's forehead. And I'd never noticed that before. And my dad said that when he was younger, he was cutting wood and chopping wood, and the handle flew up and hit him right there in his forehead. And so he had a scar after that. But I didn't know that he had a scar there. I never noticed it. And so my dad just said, that's just confirmation for you that was real, that really happened. Because as he grew older, then his scar was much less noticeable. But it was noticeable when he came to visit me. So yeah, that was really a special moment. It was one of the moments that I knew, and I'm going to connect these two together. I knew that there's life after death because of my grandpa. And then, but many years before that, when my brother Bart died, and he was only 7.5, I went into his room to apologize to him because he wanted me to help him catch lizards, and I didn't because I was too busy sunbathing. And I asked Heavenly Father if I could talk to Bart, and that's when I apologized. And I said, I'm so sorry. I wish I had to do it again. And then my brother, again, it wasn't with my physical eyes, but I was praying and my eyes were closed. And he came into the room, and this was his room. This was the bunk room where the boys stayed. And it was interesting because it was actually, in this case, it was on the right side, near the closet. But when he came in the room, he looked like a missionary, like a 19-year-old missionary. But I mean, he looked like Bart, but he looked like that. And he said, oh, well, I forgive you, like, and then he said, I am so excited, and I am so happy, because I'm teaching the gospel, and that's pretty much what he said, what he let me know. But I knew, I had the hardest time. I was like 14, and I felt like everybody expected me to cry, and at the viewing that night. And I remember I was forcing myself to cry, doing everything I could, because it was just so hard, because I knew he was happy. I knew. And when I shared it with my mom, I wish I would have, because she wasn't having experiences like that, and she felt like if anybody would have experiences, it would be her, not me. And but for me, it cemented my knowledge of the hereafter. My grandpa cemented my knowledge of the hereafter. So when we lost Link, then it was such a blessing for me to know that I have a testimony of the hereafter. And so, yeah. So I just wanted to connect those two together because they go together.
Okay, we changed our perspective a little bit. In the background of the other video was a painting that Dad's aunt did, and now we are displaying Grandma's birds, which she loves to watch. And maybe they will.
Maybe that's what I said.
Maybe they'll come sing and be in the back. Oh, I heard one.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, we all know, what gift you've been given with writing poetry, some of which is really, just really deep and comes from your life experiences. Some of them are just put on the door after your daughters come home from dates. Or put in newsletters or Christmas stuff. Anyway, also you are a talented singer too. So we're going to ask you to share. You have a couple poems about your ancestor, about your grandma.
Yeah, I did a poem for my grandma and my grandpa and my mom and dad, but I'll just share about my grandma and grandpa.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a part of my history. So this is about Grandma Tew.
Married to.
Married to the one I told you how much I love.
Mm-hmm.
Grandpa Tew's first wife died before I was born. Leah was her name, and Grandpa was forlorn. Then Grandma Tew, that I knew, was teaching in the city. Grandpa asked for her hand, and then she was giddy. A few words around the city. Okay, right away she cared for kids. Grandpa's 5, to be exact. From teaching them to raising them, she had a loving nap. Soon my grandma bore 2 kids. They joined the 2 kids pack. Lynette took to piano. Tom had a science knack. I remember on the farm the meals that Grandma served and how I used to help her make fresh bread we all deserved. Not sure about that part, but it rhymed. In summertime, for just a week, I visited the farm. I'd gather eggs, ride horses, and even learn to darn. One year I got mighty sick. To the hospital I went. I was so scared that I cried out for Grandma to be sent. My mom came later on that day to see just how I fared. She took me home and tucked me in. She showed how much she cared. Lynette, that's my aunt, was going to BYU, but died of a brain tumor. Dark were the days and quiet the house, and there was little humor. Then Grandma's daughter, fair and bright, came back to her one night. All dressed in brilliant white, she came to let my grandma know that she was happy. So she would watch for that fine day when Grandma Tew would go. Grandma Mary served us all till arthritis took its toll and made her hands and feet twist up. In a wheelchair she did go. Riding was so hard for her, yet throughout my college years, she would write to me and send her love. Her kindness brought me tears. Grandpa died many years before her days were up. From Mom and Dad's to centers, she meekly bore her cup. And when her days were over, her suffering gone away, she returned to her heavenly home. For her, 'twas a happy day.
Thank you. How old were you when you wrote that?
Oh, just a few years ago.
Okay.
So, as I was working on my history, Grandpa Potts,
We're talking about Olaf Potts.
No.
No.
No, did I say Potts? I meant Tew, Grandpa Tew.
Grandpa Tew. Burton
Yes.
Edwin Tew.
Burton Edwin
Tew
Sr. Sitting on his gentle lap and looking at his face, blue as blue, my grandpa's eyes shone down on me with grace. He would bounce me upside down, or he'd listen just to me. Sitting on my grandpa's lap was fun as it could be. My grandpa was a farmer, lived in the Talmadge place. He was a mayor and bishop, and he chose who would say grace. The first time I bartered testimony was at my grandpa's ward. I gathered up my courage, hoping others would not be bored. Grandpa's place had chickens and horses and many cows. He also kept a garden where plants would take their boughs. In his later years, my grandpa worked in the Temple White. He also cared for Mary during day and during night. He had a heart attack at 78 and went beyond the veil. I truly missed him. For a grandpa, he was swell. And then it says, many years later, after Grandpa had passed away, and following my brain tumor surgery, I wrote a poem about that. But I've already told you about it. So this is actually, I'll go ahead since I didn't do that. I'll just talk about my dad.
Okay.
I am cold, Dad, I said, as I shivered from head to toe. and on a rock he sat, on the beach of a lake, you know. My dad looked up and down the length of the fine brown sand. Then wisely he said, just run on this fine land. You will stop your chattering, your legs will warm in the wind. He promised blood would run through me, I'd warm like my sister sinned. I ran, and he was right. I warmed up right away. Then I could stand beside my sis on that fine summer day. Dad loved to build campfires, and he used to take us to swim. He'd hold his breath. We watched the clock. Each contest, he would win. We went on many trips, from camping to Disneyland. He drove the boat while we learned to ski at Bear Lake near the sand. Dad loved to sing how great that art and countless campfire songs. He laughed aloud at his own jokes and loved to play ping-pongs. While going to church, Dad took big steps. I tried to keep up with him, but it took 2 steps to one of his. He was tall and kind and slim. When we were just little tykes, he'd take our feet in his hands. He'd lift us high into the air, and we'd giggle and do a dance. My dad grew older, it is true. He has trouble with his breath. And he still played cards with Mom, up to his cancer death. If I grow old and full of fear, and feel I am worn out, I'll think of Daddy's counsel and turn myself about. Daughter, run, and you'll warm up. His voice reminds my soul, just keep on moving forward. You'll warm in life's sand bowl. And this is about my mom's last poem. Sorry. My mom made a fine nightgown of flannel, pink and white. She made it for the ward fair with her heart and mind and might. I became her model. She'd fit each sleeve in time. And oh, how much I wanted that pink nightgown to be mine. But it hung up at the fair one night. A new owner would buy it. I wish it was invisible so no one could come try it. And when I looked for it again, the nightgown was gone from the rack. Goodbye, I thought with sadness. I did so want it back. Now, can you guess the gladness that lightened up my face when Mama came and gave me it, the nightgown with pink lace? I never guessed that all the time she sewed it just for me. She planned this big surprise with love for me, you see. My mom was a fine teacher of children 5 and 6, correcting papers many nights and rarely with a hitch. With her loving hands, she served the world around, from crocheted hats and bandages to Afghans did abound. My mom was quite a writer. She's written of her life. It has great pictures, letters too, and talks of joy and strife. She's always there to help with babies' moves and such. And by her email and phone calls, she's great to keep in touch. Mom is quite the reader. She covered many books, and when she wears her homemade scarves, others stop to look. She's always busy doing things for Grandpa, Cindy, and more. From planning family dinners to doing up her chore. You know her just as Gigi, and the one who makes good food. I know her as my mother and grandma to our brood. This is in 2022, to end the poem. It says, and now she's gotten older, David stays with her. He gives her meds and drives for her and helps her not falter. She's 93 and more. She loves her doggy Pete and comes to family functions where she has an honored seat.
That's great. Okay, yeah.
So
Guitar, if
Okay.
you'll do,
what I have out was the one that I wrote for my sister Cindy.
okay,
Leah.
this is for Leah.
Yeah. When I found, let's see if I'm thinking of the right one. No. This is,
Like you in every way, or
yeah, this is like you in every way, but I have another one that I did for Leah, but it's a different one. So this one, I don't know. I fell in love with the poem, and so I decided to write it into a song.
So who wrote the poem?
You know what? I don't know.
Okay.
So
So this isn't original words, but the music is original.
The music is original, and many of the words are original too. It's just that I use some of the words the message that I got from the poem that I like.
Okay.
Sorry, just a minute.
You're good. I just put you on the spot.
Mom and Daddy, I wanna be like you in every way. I'll closely watch the things I closely watch. Just stop it for a minute. Okay.
There we go.
Like you in every way. Mom and Daddy, I wanna be like you in every way. I'll closely watch the things you do. I'll say the things you say. Then just the other day, I thought I heard my child say, if I live with praise, I'll learn to look for the good. And if I live with fairness, I'll treat others as I should. But if I live with criticism, I'll learn how to condemn. And if I live with hostility, I'll fight all men. 'Cause Mom and Daddy, I wanna be like you in every way. I'll closely watch the things you do. I'll say the things you say. And just the other day, I thought I heard my child say, if I live with empathy, then patient I will be. And if I live with encouragement, confidence you will see. But if I live with fear, I'll learn not to trust. And if I live with dictatorship, rebellion is a must. 'Cause Mom and Daddy, I wanna be like you in every way. I'll closely watch the things you do. I'll say the things you say. I'll closely watch the things you do. I'll say the things you say.
Yay. Now, how about Time is My Taskmaster? Did you find it, or do you want to do a different
We'll
one?
put it
Or
on pause.
okay,
I
here's
don't need a
another original by Patricia Potts. She wrote it in what, 19?
Does it even say?
But probably in the 80s.
I was still called Patty back
It's
then,
in the 80s, maybe.
probably. How fun. I've even got notes from Darla. love with another. I made you all quite equal, both your sister and your brother. Life is not a super race where the winner's cup is won by the man whose pace is swifter as each day gets more done. If it seems you're always running, ever trying to compete, slow down, my child, let your Savior wash those weary feet, then set them on the path in a peaceful sort of way. Begin again and notice 'tis a bright and sunny day. Bright and sunny day. A bright and sunny day. I just have to add, I remember now, I wrote this because I've done a lot of speaking in a lot of different places, and I wanted to teach this principle, and so that's why I wrote it.
Yeah, we can all relate to it. There was a couple other things that happened in your life that you wanted to share. None of this is in very chronological order, but that's
I don't
okay.
care.
I don't, it's not meant, it's not really meant to be.
My mom was always just like so chronological. So Dan's that way, but I'm not, so I'm a free spirit.
Okay, well then this matches exactly. So
Yeah.
why don't you share with us, after 4 daughters, how a son came into your family?
Okay. Thank you for asking. Actually, after Trisha, I wasn't able to have any more children because I had my tubes tied because
You had a
of a brain
hemorrhage.
tumor.
Well, and you had a hemorrhage, so I was there. It was like,
Yeah, I did.
you had to have a hysterectomy, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. Anyway, I went with, as a family, we went to Disneyland. And
how old was baby Trisha at that point?
she was probably about 2 or 3. And probably, so that I just know that we were leaving Disneyland and we had to pass the grassy area. Dan went to go get the car, and Jonna was with us at Disneyland that year. And so I was trying to hurry everybody across the lawn, and I imagine I had Trisha's hand in my hand, or I was carrying her, one of the two. And all of a sudden, I had this just scary feeling that we were missing somebody. I turned around and I counted noses, and right after, do we have da-da-da-da-da? And then it's like the Spirit said, yeah, you're missing somebody, your son. But I should have said, I need to back up to that, from that experience, I need to back up for probably a year. When Trisha was still a little, maybe just over a year old, Dan came to me and said, I think we're supposed to have a little boy. And I looked at him and said, what do you not understand about having your tubes tied? He said, I think we're supposed to adopt. And I was not, at that point, I was not okay with that. I didn't want to adopt. I felt like we had our family, we had our 4 girls, let's just move on. And so that's why the experience at Disneyland was so powerful, because it wasn't something that was on my bucket list to adopt a little boy. Fast forward from once the Lord said, what some people say, hit me over the head with a chicken. Then I really was all on. I was on board, and I was also trained for us to adopt. And it was a painful process, and we at one point thought we had found our two little boys, Nick and Joe, and that was a really painful experience for a family to go through, because they were in our home and we were thinking of them as our little boys. And one day, we were getting ready for church. Joe was running down the hall into the bathroom, and the curling iron flipped over and it landed on his and burned his shoulder. And anyway, the boys were taken from us just a few days after that. And I'm not going to go into that whole story because it's quite a story. But anyway, so we had tried the foster adopt situation, and it
didn't go well.
No, it didn't go well. And so we found another place called Children's Service Society that helps you adopt older children. And so we went through all their training, and one day this lady who had adopted came and talked to us, and she said at the very end of her talk, she said, if you will come every week and look at pictures of the children, do that consistently for 6 weeks, I promise you'll have your child. And at that point, we had been trying to adopt for a few years and had these difficult experiences and so forth and so on. So anyway, I just decided that I was going to take her at her word. And I started going every week to Children's Service Society to look at the pictures of the kids who were up for adoption. And this one, this was about the third week after the challenge, Cindy and I went, our oldest daughter Cindy, and we were looking at pictures of possible children. And I overheard somebody in the other room, I heard this woman say, something about a 5-year-old little boy, and something about that he had only hours to be picked up from this children's shelter before he would become a ward of the state. And of course, we had real strong feelings about not having a child become a ward of the state because of what we had been through. And I got up, and I think Cindy was still looking at the pictures, but I poked my head around the corner and I said, "Are you talking about a 5-year-old boy, And she said, "Yes, I am." And I said, "Well, we're kind of looking for a little boy about that age." And she said, "Do you want to talk to the mom? Because this mom is giving this little boy up."
The adoptive mom, because at first it was him and Gabby together with...
Yeah, it was with Lori and Dave.
So you talked to Lori.
Right, but so I got on the phone, and I'd only talked to her for a few minutes when she said, "What is your name?" And I said, "Patricia Potts." And she screamed on the other line. This woman screamed, and I'm like going, "Okay, what's going on?" She said, "I know you. I know you." And I said, "Okay, how do you know me?" Well, it turns out that she and her husband had taken one of my classes in understanding and overcoming depression. And or maybe it's one of the other classes. I used to teach community education. And anyway, so I come to find out, and of course this little boy was Joseph, who we adopted, but but Lori just felt she couldn't handle him anymore. I'm not going to tell you what the last straw was. No, right on this. Anyway, it was pretty bad. And she just felt like she couldn't take him anymore. She couldn't handle it anymore. They had adopted him through the LDS services and didn't have any help with mentally, with counseling or even, with medication, anything. They didn't have much help. So, any help actually. And so she had taken him to a shelter. And so we found out that we had about 2 hours before he became a ward of the state. So I called your dad and I said, at work, and I said, hey, are you still okay with maybe adopting a little boy about 5? And he said, yeah, and he's probably on his computer. And I said, well, how would you like to go meet him in a couple of hours? So he said, what? So anyway, needless to say, he came, we went to the shelter, we picked up Joseph, and that's how Joseph became part of our family. And I will say that, if it wasn't for the fact that we did have counseling as part of this, the Children's Service Society made sure that we had mental help with him and physical help with him. And it was an important thing for sure.
Yes, they were your resources.
Dean Workman, I have to say his name because he was an angel in our
process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was how Joseph came to be.
Yep. He was about 5. Yeah, he was 5 when he came into our family, and Trisha was
only 9 months apart.
Yeah.
And it was hard for Trisha.
Yeah.
To say the least. I'm sure it was hard for Joseph too.
Yes, Joseph had a tough life before coming to us. So.
And even coming to us, I don't know that it was always what do they say, a walk in the park.
Yep, our family wasn't always picnic. 4 older sisters, that's not easy either. Cindy learned that sometimes the answer is yes, then no.
Yeah, I wanted to share this because it has such a powerful lesson. And as we know, Cindy married Mike. They had 4 children, and they went through divorce. And I remember I talked with Cindy one time. She said, I prayed. Why would I marry Mike why would I feel like marrying Mike when, years later they would get divorced? And a principle that I've learned, and I oftentimes use the story of Nephi and the Leahona, and that I believe that sometimes that Leahona had him maybe veer to the right, and sometimes it had him veer to the left. But it didn't, I don't believe that it went in an absolute straight line. And I believe that in our lives, that sometimes some of the experiences that we have are meant to be, even though it doesn't seem like it. And it was confirmed to me by President Monson, I believe. He has a video out there where he...
I think it was Holland. Are you talking about the driving?
Yeah, you're right.
The driving thing.
Of course, I love Monson in a special way because of Bart. But, anyway, okay, so yeah, Holland. He took his son to go fishing, I think it was. And then afterwards, they could either go to the right or the left. And his son prayed about it. He said, pray about it, son. And his son prayed about it. And he felt to go to the right. Turns out that the right was really a dead end. And they were supposed to go to the left. And so he asked his dad, why would I feel like going to the right when clearly that was the wrong way to go. And if I remember the way President Monson said, is that sometimes we have to go one way in order to realize it's supposed to be the other way. And so anyway, I've shared both Cindy's, her experience as well as President, I keep wanting to say Monson, but it's Holland.
I'm sure it's Holland.
Both of the stories, because I think that the principle is, if we will seek to live prayer by prayer, just one prayer at a time, then the Lord will lead us. And if we go one direction and we think we go a little ways and we feel like that maybe that isn't, going to work the best, then it's no shame. It's not a guilt trip. It's that if we've been seeking to live prayer by prayer, then it's just because we need to go a little ways this way in order to learn what we needed to learn in order to go that way. And I will say I saw this beautiful video of a woman who lost her husband. She had 7 children, and she lost him.
In war,
He was killed in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But one of the things she talks about was, I can't say her words, but kind of the same principle, that we have experiences in this life, and we need to, we need to learn from them and move on, So I just wanted to share that principle because it's so powerful. And yeah, I could probably go on and on about this and that because I love learning, and I love especially being taught by the Holy Spirit. And anyway, I want to thank Heidi for doing this. It's a love note for sure. Spend the time and to interview us and let us say a few things that are precious to our hearts.
Okay, is there anything else you want to leave your posterity with? Are you good?
I've left quite a bit already. Anything else?
What do you want to be known for after you go? What do you hope people remember you for?
I hope they remember that I try to be grateful. I try to do my 5 thankfuls when I get caught up in some negatives. And I hope that I'm remembered for I try to just always stay close to my family, and for my testimony, and I'm so thankful I can share a few of the stories that the Lord, experiences the Lord has given to me. And I've always felt like I want to be able to share. I've always wanted to. So I've really been really thankful on Facebook. I'm putting songs that I love and things that I'm thankful for, and I'm doing this emotional wellness little tips because I just love to share what I learned. So that's, I guess, it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.